The LGBTQ plus debate in Africa misses no space lately in interactions between African leaders and leaders of many Western countries who are some of its strongest advocates. Many African leaders have had to shut out advocating Western leaders, as Uhuru Kenyatta did during a briefing with then-President Obama some years back.
For Kenyans today, the issue of gay rights is really a non-issue. We want to focus on other areas that are day-to-day living for our people. The fact remains that this issue is not really an issue that is on the foremost mind of Kenyans.
Former President of Ghana, the late Professor John Evans Atta Mills, was just as forthright in asserting Ghana's position despite warnings about the risk of aid cuts from Great Britain in 2011.
I, as President of this nation, will never initiate or support any attempts to legalize homosexuality in Ghana. As a government, we will abide by the principles enshrined in our Constitution, which Constitution is supreme. Let me also say that whilst we acknowledge all the financial assistance and all the aid which has been given to us by our development partners, we will not accept any aid with strings attached if that aid will not inure to our interest, or the implementation or the utilization of that aid with strings attached would rather worsen our plight as a nation or destroy the very society that we want to use the money to improve.
A section of the Ghanaian public took on former President John Dramani Mahama for his open association with a known LGBTQ plus advocate, Andrew Solomon, who had written the foreword of his book, My First Coup d'etat. His Minister of Information then, Mahama Ayariga, was compelled by the circumstances to clear the air on President's position on homosexuality, which he said was criminal per the laws of Ghana. It will not be long before President Mahama got hounded on his 2016 visit to the Scottish Parliament for what they said was he operating an anti-LGBTQ plus government. It thus came to many as a surprise when President Akufo-Addo, in an interview on Al Jazeera in 2017, suggested that the legalization of gay rights in Ghana was bound to happen.
I don't believe that in Ghana so far a sufficiently strong coalition has emerged, which is having that impact on public opinion that will say, change it. Let's then have a new paradigm in Ghana.
Is that something you would get behind?
I think that it is something that is bound to happen.
The criticism from religious bodies particularly was stinging. So when he got another opportunity in church, he made the most definite of his statements against it in 2021.
It will not be under the presidency of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo that same-sex marriage will be legalized in Ghana. It will never happen.
But this unequivocal expression was lost in the president's recent comments at the Jubilee House when he met United States Vice President Kamala Harris, who, in discussing Ghana's anti-LGBTQ plus bill in Parliament, called it a human rights issue and reaffirmed her support.
At the end of the process, I will come in. In the meantime, the Parliament is dealing with it. And I have no doubt that the Parliament of Ghana will show, as it's done in the past, first of all, its sensitivity to human rights issues, as well as to the feelings of our population, and will come out with a responsible response.
For many, including the Speaker of Parliament, Albon Babing, who has consistently assured Ghanaians that the anti-LGBTQ plus bill in Parliament will be passed, Akufo-Addo lost a golden opportunity to set the record straight.
The bill will be passed. This is the word to His Excellency the President. There is no way he can intervene. That answer he gave, that is now before Parliament. And when he gets to a stage that he will come in, hey, please. This is legislation, this is not execution.
The Catholic Bishops' Conference shares similar sentiments. Its president, Most Reverend Matthew Jemfi, is quoted by the Catholic Trends saying, quote, We expect a president to have spoken more boldly, to say what the people of Ghana at least have said up till now, even if it has not been passed in Parliament yet, unquote. Perhaps the LGBTQ plus bill, which was laid in Parliament in August 2021, is what has changed the president's commentary. The bill has gone through many phases and has now been cleared for passage by Parliament's Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, which has received and reviewed over 170 memoranda from interest groups and stakeholders. Notwithstanding that Section 104 of the Criminal and Other Offences Act 1960 at 29 criminalizes unnatural carnal knowledge, proponents of the Private Members' Bill argue the existing law is not expansive enough to deal with the activities of LGBTQ+, hence the bill. A legal opinion by the government's principal legal advisor, the Attorney General, whose memorandum raised issues of fundamental human rights breaches, helped refine the bill to its ready state. Proponents of the bill say it has bipartisan support in Parliament, but outside it, cracks are beginning to emerge on the political front. As criticism of President Akufo-Addo's stance in the press conference with Harris mounted, the Director of Communications for the New Patriotic Party, NPP, Mr. Richard Ahiaba, asked former President John Dramani Mahama what his position on the subject is. In a tweet, Mr. Ahiaba asked, quote, "What is His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's position on the evolving LGBTQ plus debate? What is it?" Unquote. We don't know definitely yet, but at least one leading NDC member has asked for the country to approach the subject with a bit more nuance. Director of International Relations of the party, Alex Sebefia, has some critical questions.
When you jail a man for 10 years, do you allow his wife to go and meet him? As a society, we tend to create some of these things that exist. Because somebody can go into prison without having a penchant whatsoever for making love to somebody of the same sex. But because of rape and what goes on in the prison and whatever,
which is true,
he comes out with a flavor for it. He may not, but he will have now a flavor for it. What steps are we taking to deal with such a person?
Having now been modified with changes in the short and long titles, removal of queer and intersex, and realignment of the penalties, the bill inches closer to being approved.
We are looking at the bill in that context, taking into account our culture, practices, our religious practices as enshrined in the 1992 Constitution. So I assure everybody that we'll make sure the bill will come into law in a manner such that it will achieve its purpose and at the same time will not trample upon anybody's right.
Inevitably, the U.S. Vice President's visit refocused the lenses of the international media on the anti-LGBTQ plus debate with what some call sensational and alarmist commentary. A recent CNN story described the bill as draconian with the harshest sanctions in Africa. Those opposed to the bill continue to dread its impact when it comes into force. Danny Bediako of Rightify Ghana says, quote, "It's going to make it difficult for the LGBTQI plus community to exist. They are just trying to erase the community through this bill, so it will definitely lead to an increase in attacks," unquote. With threats of sanctions looming and Ghana cap in hand at the moment, trying to woo Western donors to come to the aid of its ailing economy, it will be interesting to see how first Parliament and then the President balance what proponents insist are right family values and not falling foul of the powerful West. Information Minister Kojompon Nkrumah is in no doubt, though, that the focus on the subject this week may be much ado about nothing. Quote, "We are not pressured in any way to focus on things that are not essentially within our main priority." He told CNN, "Our priority number one is getting the Ghanaian economy on track, and that's what we are focused on. This conversation is not part of our mainstream conversation here in Ghana." Unquote. Well, it doesn't look that way if you follow the frenzy with which proponents of the bill approach it, whether in Parliament, on traditional media, or on social media.